is an actress, producer, and transgender advocate. She can currently be seen in the critically acclaimed Netflix original series Orange is the New Black. Her portrayal of the incarcerated Sophia Burset has touched the hearts of viewers.
Cox is the first African-American trans woman to produce and star in her own television show, VH1's critically acclaimed Transform Me. Transform Me was nominated for a GLAAD Media Award for Outstanding Reality Program in 2011 and was the first television show to star 3 transsexual women. Cox made television history when she became the first African-American trans woman to appear on a reality television program, VH1's I Want to Work for Diddy in 2008. She accepted the GLAAD Media Award in 2009.
Cox was the recipient of the Anti-Violence Project's 2013 Courage Award. As a transgender advocate, Cox continues to lend her voice to the cause of transgender visibility and equality. She is committed to telling diverse and three-dimensional trans stories in the media.
Please join us in welcoming the immensely talented and ever-inspiring Laverne Cox!
Hampshire College, thank you so much. Oh my goodness, I'm so deeply honored to be here tonight. Can we please thank the students formerly known as Devin and Karen for that lovely introduction. Make some noise for them. I must say you look and sound fantastic today. To Anna, oh, that was so beautiful. She made me cry up here. Make some noise for Anna. That was truly beautiful and moving and insightful. I have to follow that. to Chair Hill and to President Lash, J to the Lash, I'm told. To the trustees, the faculty and staff, to the friends and family, the parents, grandparents, cousins, siblings, and to the Hampshire College graduating class of 2014. Congratulations! When I got the email from my agent informing me that you, the graduating class of Hampshire College 2014, had selected me to be your commencement speaker, I was so moved. I have to tell you, as an African-American transgender woman from a working class background, raised by a single mother, I'm still not quite used to being chosen. Go figure. I often believe that I would never be chosen, and so I want to say to you, the graduating class of Hampshire College 2014, that I believe that you choosing me tonight sends a message to everybody out there, and I hope it reverberates beyond this space, that to everyone out there who's ever felt that because of the way they look, because of their race, because of their ethnicity, because of their background, their religion, because of a disability, because of their gender, that they will never be chosen. I hope this gives them the possibility, that you have modeled for them the possibility that they have the possibility of being chosen. I'm an actor. I'm on a show that some of you might have heard of. Have you heard of this show called Orange is the New Black? Good. I know many of you have been waiting with breath that is bated for season 2. It is coming June 6th. Are you ready? I'm an actor, and so basically I'm a storyteller. I'm a storyteller. Brene Brown reminds us that either we walk in our stories and own them, or we stand outside our stories and hustle worthiness. And far too often in my life, I have found myself outside my story hustling for worthiness. I have not believed that I am worthy. So today I'm going to attempt to stand in my story and share some of it with you today. Thinking about giving a commencement address, I couldn't help but think about my own commencement, and I wrestled with myself. I'm like, do I really want to tell them that story? It's a little embarrassing, that story, but I figured I will stand in my story today, and I'm going to share it with you. For the first time ever in public, so breaking news here at Hampshire College. So for my commencement, when I graduated, I attended Marymount Manhattan College in New York City, and for my commencement, my mother was really excited, I have to say. My mother was really excited because when I graduated from high school, I went to this school called the Alabama School of Fine Arts in Birmingham, Alabama, and I was a dance major there, and I was also a dance major in college. But for my graduation from high school, because it was an art school, we were not required to wear caps and gowns. Now this very much disappointed my mother. She wanted that visual of me walking across the stage in a cap and gown, and instead, when I graduated from high school, I was wearing a zebra print robe with a leopard print peel box hat. I don't know what exactly I was going through. but I felt fabulous, I really did. And so for my commencement, for when I graduated from Marymount, I did not want to wear a cap and gown. Now by this time, I was very much in this sort of gender non-conforming space. By the time I had graduated from Marymount, I'd grown my hair out, and I had long, box braided black extensions, and my head was shaved on the sides and in the back. And my eyebrows were also shaved, and I was really into a smoky eye and a nude lip at the time. Yes, I was. So and even though I hadn't quite accepted my womanhood, I knew that I wasn't a man, and at that time, I was not interested in any form of conformity. The idea of wearing the exact same thing as hundreds of other students was repulsive to me. Yes, it was. So I did not want to wear a cap and gown, but I valued the education I received at Marymount, so I wanted to get that degree. So, this is what I did. I wore the cap and gown, and as I walked across the stage and received my diploma, I stripped off my gown and cap, and underneath revealed, wait for it, combat boots, a black pleated A-line skirt, and no top. Now, just FYI, I hadn't started my medical transition, so I was very flat-chested at the time, so it wasn't, that kind of shock. and when a friend of mine, AB, often remembers that moment when we're still friends. He said, "Oh, that was fabulous. Oh, you were fabulous and wonderful." But at the time, it didn't feel fabulous. It felt like me asserting who I was. And even at that time, I needed to assert who I was in the world. And I wasn't into anybody telling me who I was. And it was really important for me to exist in public space on my own terms. there was a lot of confusion, and there was a lot of self-hatred and denial. I wanted to talk to you about the time I graduated and said that I entered the world knowing exactly what I wanted to do and how I would change it and what my mark would be, but I didn't have a clue. I really didn't. I was a dance major at Marymount, and I graduated with a fine arts degree, and I had started acting when I was at Marymount, so I wanted to act, and I was sort of done with dancing. It was just, for me at the time, dance was so gendered and so binary, and it was just, I needed to not be in that kind of space. And I was also very interested in queer theory and feminist theory and post-colonial theory, and I thought I had interesting things to say about all of those subjects, so I wanted to explore that. I was all over the place, but really I was interdisciplinary, and hearing, right? And hearing about the curriculum that we've all completed here at Hampshire College gives me so much hope, because I believe what was fantastic, really, about my life at this point is that every single thing that I was interested in college, I use in my life today. But it took me a while to get there. It took me a while to get there. So first I had to deal with my gender stuff. And I think in a lot of ways I'm still dealing with my gender stuff. Now I was really committed to being in a non-binary gender space when I was in college, and a lot of that had to do with my feminist studies. I didn't want to reinscribe any ideas of binary gender, by fully embracing femininity or masculinity. So I wanted to be somewhere in between, and that was getting more and more difficult for me. For me, in my story, this was about. What was really going on for me is that I had internalized a lot of transphobia, a lot of self-hatred about who I really was. I really wanted to be a girl. I really wanted to embrace all of these super high femme sorts of things. And it wasn't until I did a beauty pageant. I know. It was a beauty pageant, and it was at this club called the Pyramid Club in New York City, which still exists. And it was a party called Goddess, run by a woman named Gloria Holsom. She had recently changed her name from Gloria Hole because she had fallen in love. So now she was Holsom. And I performed at this club a lot at the time, and she said, you should enter this ice cream pageant. I'm like, I'm not a pageant queen, that's not who I am. But I decided to enter it anyway, and so for the first time, I fully embraced this high femme kind of presentation. I wore a swimsuit for the first time, and I wore breast for the first time, and my talent at the time, I was singing operatically. I transitioned from singing heavy metal songs operatically, songs by Pantera and Iron Maiden. And so for my talent, I sang Schubert's Ave Maria, and then did a peel. I was wearing this big sort of hoop skirt, and then after I sang Ave Maria, the skirt fell to the ground, and then I did a ballet dance-inspired routine to sort of a can-can kind of thing, with high kicks and splits and fortes. And I was first runner-up in this beauty pageant, this ice queen. I won't tell you the year, but that was a really transformative time for me, because I was just like, for so many years, I was fighting my desire. I was fighting who I really believed I was and who I really wanted to be. And finally, I accepted it, and I was like, okay, this is who I am, this is what I want to be. And that moment of acceptance was so freeing. Now in college, I developed a very critical awareness around institutional structures of domination, and I thought that I would be fully armed because I was smart, because I had a critical awareness. But what I realized in that moment is that I had a lot of pain that I had to deal with and work through. The reality for me is that because I grew up very, very bullied, and then when I started studying ballet, it was a very critical space for me where I was highly criticized because I didn't have the perfect feet or the perfect legs or the perfect turnout. And so I was in this space of where I was being highly criticized, and I really had become my own bully. I'd internalized all of those voices that told me that I wasn't enough, right? And my work as an adult really has been to silence those voices and to begin to believe that I'm enough. Now, another transformative moment for me happened after I'd done this film called Daughter of Arabia, probably about 12 years ago or so, maybe 14 years, something like that. And I was working at a place called Coffee Shop in Union Square in New York City, and I was waiting tables, and one of my coworkers, a woman by the name of Candace Edmondson, said, "You should come check out this acting class that I'm taking." And the class was taught by this woman named Susan Batson. Now, Susan Batson is this renowned acting coach. She coaches Nicole Kidman and Juliette Binoche, and she's worked with J-Lo and Diddy and all these sort of big famous people. And so I went and I took her class, and the intense thing for me about that is that she said, "You're a great performer, you can perform, but what is the truth? What is your truth? Who are you really?" Up until that point, because of how bullied I was and because of how much pain and trauma I had experienced, I developed a very elaborate cover, a very intensely armored persona, so that I would be impervious to any kind of vulnerability, because it's a tough world out there if you are gender non-conforming, working class, and Black, right? So I was very defensive. I had all these defenses up. Several years ago, I was in an audition, and I saw this woman at this audition who I used to wait tables with, and she said to me, "When you worked at Coffee Shop, you were mean. You were really mean, and you owned your space. You were a diva, but you were really mean." And she said this, and I was like, sort of like, oh. And what I said to her is, I didn't like myself back then, and so I took that on everybody around me. And this process that I started with Susan Batson, this artistic endeavor of really committing to being an actor, those walls began to fall down. And I began to allow myself to feel the pain that I endured as a child. And there's this lovely expression, you have to feel it to heal it. And the moment when I started to feel that pain, it started to go away and I started to get better. And I got really serious about being an actor. I was like, okay, I'm gonna really go for this. And at the time, I saw being trans as this deficit. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go in for auditions and I'm not gonna mention that I'm trans. And so I would go in and I would do the audition and I got work here and there, but I didn't quite break through. And then I had a conversation with my brother several years ago, and he said to me that you have to own this trans thing, or it's going to own you. And that was the beginning of me really critically engaging with who I was and how I would be in the world again. Right? This isn't the first time. There's been several times of me critically engaging with the world around me and asking myself, who am I and what is my purpose here? You're gonna be going through that a lot. Yeah, that kind of never stops. And so I stopped thinking of being trans as something that I had to hide or be ashamed of, and I started looking at it as a benefit, something that made me special and different. And so when I started owning, yes, thank you. Really owning being trans, I felt my life shift. I felt my molecules shift, and the world shifted around me. I was in therapy during all this time too, right? And when one of my therapists said to me in the first session I had with her, that the only things that we can change are our perception and our behavior. Now, this was very frustrating to me at the time because I wanted to change the world. I saw all of this injustice around me and I wanted to change it. But I was like, okay, this might be something to this, so I stuck with it. And I saw my perceptions about who I was in the world around me changing. And I began to frame my reality in a different way. And as I framed my reality and my experiences in a different way, I acted differently. And things shifted around me. The people in my life, I got closer to them because I changed. I became the change that I wanted to see. And then in 2007, there was a show called Dirty Sexy Money. Does anyone remember this show? And what was really significant about this show is that it starred a woman named Candace Kane, who, in that role, she became the first transgender woman to have a recurring role on a primetime television show. And that moment was life-changing for me because I began to believe that it was possible for me to really pursue my dream. I've been studying acting now for a very long time. I won't even tell you how long. Well, I did my first movie 16 years ago, I'll tell you that, while I was still a college student at Marymount. And that moment made me believe that it was possible for me to pursue my dreams. And telling the truth to myself about myself, I allowed myself to have the dreams that I really wanted. The dreams of being the femme creature that you see before you now. And the dream of being an actor. Now, when I was guarded, when I was armored up, when I had my elaborate cover, I didn't allow myself to fully have my dreams. I was so critical. I would stop myself before I even started something. Now I allow myself to be vulnerable and to feel, and that allows me to get in touch with what I really, really want. And I have to constantly slow down and ask myself, Laverne, what are you feeling? What do you really want right now? What do you want to choose today? So I encourage you as you begin this new chapter in your life, as you commence with your life post Hampshire College, that you slow down and breathe and ask yourselves, what do you really want? And how do you want to be in the world? What is the truth about what I feel and want and deserve and desire? And tell that truth to yourself and manifest that truth in the world. Now, I love that there's been so much talk about justice and social justice here today, and it's such a huge part of my life too, that I feel like gives me purpose, is the ways in which I can be of service. Now, in my introduction, it was mentioned that I was on a reality show called I Want to Work for Diddy. I heard some of you snicker. I still can't believe I did that show, but it's still one of the craziest things I've ever done in my life. But the reason I did that show is because as a Black transgender woman, so often, most of the bullying and harassment I've experienced in my lifetime, and there's been much, has come from other Black folks. And I believe, this is not to suggest that Black folks are more homophobic or transphobic than everybody else. I've never believed that, but I believe it's more complicated than that. I find that oftentimes marginalized groups begin policing each other, that trans people police other trans people, Black people police other Black people, Latin people police other Latin people, etc. Women policing other women. And so I think that's part of it, and we just police gender in this culture. Anyway, and the day before my last interview for I Want to Work for Diddy, I was walking down the street and I passed a group of young men, and one of them, I heard anti-gay slurs, I heard anti-trans slurs, which is not unusual in my life. And then I heard one of them say, "That's a man," and then one of them kicked me. One of them kicked me, and I remember being so stunned as I stood there. Oh my God, did this just really happen? And I ran into a store and I called the police. And so the next day, when I went in for my final interview for I Want to Work for Diddy, I talked about that, and I thought, how amazing would it be for this hip hop mogul, P. Diddy, I think he's calling himself Puffy now, I'm not sure. It changes, But I thought, how amazing would it be for this hip-hop mogul to embrace this African-American transgender woman on national television? That felt like the kind of change I wanted to see, so that's why I did it. And for me, that is a crucial moment because I realized that moment was not about me, that it was bigger than me. And so it was a moment where I felt like I was doing service, and I got so many emails from Black trans women all over the country saying, I've never seen a Black trans woman represented in a professional way on television before. And that felt really powerful to me. So service is a huge part of how I try to live my life, but I have to remember that I can't do it all, that I'm going to do it imperfectly. And I say a prayer before I speak every time, and the prayer is, God, please give me permission to do this imperfectly and allow me to be of service. So I hope that I have been of service to you tonight.